Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? We are so excited to be here today. We just wanted to welcome you all. We are from the Jacksonville Flower Market. That's located on Beach Boulevard. It's that big green building that a lot of people say they pass by that they've never been in before. But that's where we are. We do lots of classes. We are a full-service flower shop. So funerals, weddings, all the things. So we're super excited when we get to come off site and do things like this. I'm gonna start with some intros and then we'll kind of go on down the line. We'll hang out here for a little bit and then we will move to the back and start creating our wreaths. So I am one of our event coordinators. So today I will be walking around with you all and kind of helping out instructing. So I'm gonna pass over the mic to Crystal.
I'm Crystal. I'm the other wedding and event coordinator at Jacksonville Flower Market. I don't know how to talk on a microphone. If you ever need anything from Yasmin and I for events, we're always happy to help in. And then I'm gonna pass it off to Sarah. Dear God.
Hi guys, my name's Sarah. I am the marketing manager for Jacksonville Flower Market. Today I will be walking around with my phone, taking little photos and videos. If anyone doesn't want their photo or video taken, just let me know. I'll walk around, ask if it's okay. Totally okay if y'all don't want it, but just let me know. If you don't already follow us on social media, definitely follow us. Like I said, we'll be posting some videos from today. It is Jacksonville FL Flower Market is going to be our Instagram if you guys want to give us a follow. And then this is Deanna. I'm going to pass her off to you. She's going to be your instructor for today.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna. I'll be making the wreaths with you today. My position at Jacksonville Flower Market is I'm the retail manager, but I have a hand in a lot of other things as well. So I'm so happy to be here with you today. I will be talking a little bit about some fun facts and some history. And then like Yasmin said, we'll move to the back and start creating the wreaths together. If there's ever a time where I'm moving too fast or you're kind of need a little bit of help, just raise your hand. All the ladies will be walking around to help you. If there's anything else that you need to know, raise your hand. If Yasmin tells me to stop, I'll stop and we'll go over something again, okay? Otherwise, I'm so excited to get started with you guys today. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Switcheroo. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Like I said, my name is Deanna. So I'll get started kind of going over everything with you, and then we'll move to the back. So today we'll be making a wreath. So it'll be a natural wreath just like this. Okay. I made this one previously. So has anybody made a wreath before? We have. Okay, great. Has it been with real greens? Yes, great. Okay. Has anybody used holly before? Yes, I hear some yeses. Okay, if you haven't used holly before or made a wreath with real greens before, for the few of us who haven't, please note that holly is very prickly. So be careful of that. We do have some band-aids, but let's try not to use them. Okay. So, but yes, just be note, okay? That is very prickly and I just don't want anybody to get injured on that. We also have Princess Pine, which when you cut it is very sappy. So be note of that. I probably will be wearing gloves because at the end, I'm going to show you guys how to make a bow in case you do want to make a bow and put it on your wreath. I haven't put a bow on this wreath just because the bows that we have are quite large and in charge, and I'm a big bow girl, but apparently it takes away from the natural beauty. So I'll be making a bow for you anyway, just because I said I'm a bow girl and I just like putting bows on everything. So that's what I'll be doing. At the end, or whenever you feel like it, we do have ribbon in the back. And so you guys can just, raise your hand. One of the girls will come over and there's a bunch of options for you guys to choose from. So you can take it. And then if we have any left over at the end of the class, you guys are more than welcome to take that with you as a special gift. Okay. I brought gloves for myself, but I do have like a little bit more of a pack. So if anybody does want gloves, I don't think I brought enough for everyone, but if anybody does really want gloves, just raise your hand and I'll make sure to get it to you. Okay. But before we get started, let's talk about wreaths. Does anybody know where wreaths come from? Why we use them? Why we decorate with them? Anybody? No. Okay, cool. So wreaths have been used since the ancient times. So it predates Christianity. It's actually been used since Etruscans. I had to make sure I wrote that one down. Etruscans used them as jewelry. So they would put them on their heads or use them as jewelry as early as 700 BC. And then the Egyptians and Persians would use the greenery, and that would symbolize strength and perseverance. Now, today we know it more as an advent wreath, which is more predominantly used in Christianity and Catholicism. And that advent wreath was a German invention. It was traditionally set up the first Sunday of Advent, which is 4 Sundays before Christmas. I had to look it up. I thought it was going to be around this time. It's not. We missed it, but it's okay. We're not Germans. So they would put candles in their wreaths. They would put 4 candles in their Advent wreaths to symbolize hope, love, joy, and peace. And now in our recent years, our wreaths have become increasingly popular in home decor, and we use it not only just for the seasons, but for, any decorations that we want. It's actually really cool because the circular shape symbolizes eternal life. And particularly in the Advent wreath, the holly berries symbolize Christ's thorns or crown and thorns because it symbolizes the thorns of his crowns and the blood droplets. So that's why holly became really popular in wreaths. But mostly, nowadays, everyone uses the decoration for their own personal values, right? So over in New Mexico, they actually make wreaths of dried chilies. And I think that in Hawaii, they make tropical wreaths with tropical flowers and leaves. So it really has become personalized, right? You can add lights, you can add ornaments, you can add, I don't know, your baby's first picture, whatever brings you joy, right? Now it's become a little bit more popular and mainstream. So you can create it from whatever you want. It doesn't have to necessarily be the traditional Advent wreath. All right. So now that we know a little bit about that, you'll have a bunch of greenery put at your desks. Every wreath is like a snowflake. It's all beautiful and different. No one will have exactly the same amount nor the same things, but you'll all have typically the same items, hopefully. If there's something that you're lacking or you need more of, just let the girls know. We do have a little bit extra, but just make sure to use it sparingly. We'll be creating little packets or little packs of just really aesthetic bunches, and then we'll be placing it on our wreath, okay? For the most part, we all have fir. We have 3 different types of fir. We have 2 different types of cedar, and then we have some princess pine. Be careful with the princess pine and the holly, like I said. Otherwise, while we're making the wreaths, I'll tell you fun facts about the materials that we're using today. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? No? Okay, great. I hope everyone brought their own shears and wire for you will be available at your table. We've already kind of estimated how much we need. We'll probably be making about 12-ish bunches or, however many you have, depending on what your greenery is available. So just remember to use these sparingly. We do have extra if you need it though, but it's 1 per bunch, and then we'll attach it 1 per once we get going. This will make sense while we're getting started. All right, so I think that's all I have for now. Why don't we take our positions at our tables and we'll get started. Oh, yeah. You're not hitting the method.
So like put your hands like you would be working so that Yaz, when she gets there, can. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I want to make sure. Okay. Go to the very back. Can they see it in the back?
Everyone can see me? Okay. You can see it? Perfect.
Big brain.
All right, can everyone see me? Can everyone see my hands? Okay. Okay. Does anyone need gloves? Does anyone want gloves? Yeah? Here, Yazi. I don't have any of those. Yasmin's gonna go around and pass them around. All right, as Yasmin's passing around those gloves and you guys are getting settled, note that your greens are bundled together, so you can start removing that from the bundling, and then kind of spreading out what you have. We need to prep our greens before we can even start with our wreaths. So start moving your greens on out. I like to put them in like nice little piles, so that way I have all of my cedar in one pile, I have all of my fir in one, any princess pines I'll put in separate, and then the holly again will be in a separate pile. So this is cedar. We have two types of cedar. We've got redwood and we've got port. I'll give you some facts on that as we're talking. Oh, and I also have, you guys might have little bouts of incense cedar as well. Some might have it, some might not. Just know that that is a different kind of cedar. So redwood cedar is really cool because redwood cedar has a lifespan of up to 1,500 years. The wood is fairly lightweight and soft and low in strength. It's mainly produced out of Western Washington. It's coniferous and a gymnosperm. Does anybody know the difference between an angiosperm and a gymnosperm? No? So this is really cool for a garden club. So angiosperms and gymnosperms, the difference between that is that angiosperms are flowering plants, whereas gymnosperms, we call them naked seeds. So a flowering plant generally has a seed which is inside of an ovule, and that ovule is protected by fruit, and that's an angiosperm, right? But a gymnosperm is generally like a cone, anything coniferous. It's a naked seed, so the seed is completely out, it's hard, right? But when it goes to the ground, it breaks down, there's no fruit covering it. So generally when you see like a cone-bearing tree, that generally doesn't have flowers. Now there are some exceptions, and we have one of those really cool exceptions today. We have the holly. Holly is a tree, but it also is a flowering plant. So this is technically a deciduous or evergreen / angiosperm. So it's one, I like to call it a plant freak. So he's a little plant freak. So he's both flowering, but also a deciduous tree. Very strange. So that's really cool. So that's the biggest difference between angiosperms and gymnosperms. Let's get back to the cedar. So Canada is the largest producer of the cedar. And you can tell that it's cedar because it's got like scale-like flat leaves. Okay. The red cedar from the Western red cedar is a little bit more darker in color, and it often has a spicy scent. Now I smelled this before we got here, but it wasn't really spicy to me. And then the port Orford cedar, which is the different other kind of cedar that we've got in here. If you can tell the difference, the only main difference is mostly that one is stronger. This port Orford would be stronger. It's more weather resistant, and it has a ginger aroma. Again, I smelled it. I wasn't really getting ginger, but you tell me. Maybe my sense is off. And then we've got our princess pine. Remember, that's the sappy girl, so be careful. And then we've got our fir. We have 3 different types of fir. So we'll talk about the fur as we're making it so we can kind of get started, okay? All right, so this is what we're gonna do. We need to process our greens. So any green, think about the wreath that we're gonna be making. We need to bunch them down into small little bits, right? So what you wanna do is you kind of wanna prepare your greenery by making small little bits. So like this could be one, this could be another, and just kind of prepare your greenery so that way you've got small little bits. So take your fur, I always start with my fur, and I kind of just create little bits. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be packaging them together, and then we'll create something a little aesthetic, creating bundles, okay? So right now, we're just chopping.
Ladies, it truly doesn't matter which green we start with. You can pick whichever green you'd like to start with. I maybe avoid the pine. But you don't have to start with the fur. Deanna, could you show them the fur one more time?
Sure. So the fir, the big difference between fir and pine and the cedar is scaly flat, where the fir is kind of like your true like Christmas tree. So we actually have Douglas fir, which is used as like your Christmas tree. They're like the needles and they're more spiny. But it doesn't matter what you start with as long as we just start breaking it down into usable piles.
And how many piles will we be making?
We'll generally use about 12 piles, but if you have more or less, that's okay. But try to make them small enough so that way you'll have enough to go around.
So we will basically be making 12 little tiny greenery bunches.
That's right. You can keep all of the same ones, like all your fir together, keep all your cedar together. I prefer doing that. So when you're creating your bundles, then they're going to be prettier. So I just kind of make piles of what I have. And then after we're done breaking it down, we can choose from those piles what we'll want to use. And it'll just be easier while we're creating.
And Deanna, can you show us about how large you need to be making our pieces that we're cutting?
Sure. So like, look at my silver fir here. So it's quite large. So I'm just going to chop about that much off. Now he still might be quite large, but I'm okay with it. So about this or even a little bit smaller, we want to make small little bundles. So I will be putting cedar on top of him. So we don't want them too large, but we won't want them too small. So I would say probably about a hand size is good. Hand size. And if you have like a big branch like I do, then just chop all of its exterior off. So that way you don't use the branch. You don't need a big branch. We don't want a big branch. And so now you can see I have all of my fur in one pile and they're quite small. So even this guy, he's pretty small. It all ranges. And then if we need to adjust, then we can always do that as well. So don't fret too much if you feel like it's too big or too small. Try not to cut a little pieces, but keep them small enough to where they're manageable. And then I'm going to move on to my cedar. So for my cedar, because they're like fluffy, a little different, I just go ahead and I cut the bottoms of each. Now, if you get one giant piece like this guy, I generally do like a little cross section and then just chop where I can to make separate pieces.
Different kinds of fur.
We have 3 different kinds of fur. We've got noble fir, Douglas fir, and silver fir. So our noble fir is bluish tinted, but don't get that confused with our silver fir. So the silver fir, as you can see on the back, if you turn it over, it looks blue or silver. So that would be our silver fir. Now the silver fir is really cool because it's native to Europe. From the Pyrenees, north of Normandy, all Eastern Europe. It generally grows in cold and humid climates. So it really grows well in Italy. Back then, way back then, it was used as a diabetes treatment in old Europe. They would make tea out of it, and it would reduce the glycemic response, which lowers your sugar. It was also additionally used originally with their wood to make casks and cask store wine, which is my favorite part. So that's pretty cool. So that's your silver fir. Now your noble fir kind of looks like your Douglas fir, so you might get those mixed up. So it's kind of a little bit more spiky. It does have a bluish tint to it. I would say more like grayish tint, but it's very stiff and upright. That's how you can tell. It's from the Pacific Northwest, and the needles don't easily shed. So this is why a lot of florists really love to use the noble fir during Christmas season, because it's higher quality. But with the higher quality also comes a higher price. So, and then we also have our Douglas fir. So let me see if I have any pieces of Douglas fir. I do. So this is our Douglas fir. So our Douglas fir is native to Western North America and the Pacific Northwest, just like our noble fir. It's found in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of facts on this because this is a Christmas tree. This is our normal Christmas tree. This is generally what a lot of people have in their homes. Now, the trees can reach up to 250 feet tall, and it's ranked the second tallest tree species in the world. It's the best timber producing species that we have, and it can last between 500 to 1,000 years. But it only grows 1 to 2 feet per year. It's also coniferous, meaning that's a gymnosperm that produces cones. And it has a sweet pine-like scent, which is why a lot of people like them in their Christmas trees for their houses. It needs a lot of water, especially in the first week. So make sure that if you do use those types of firs, to at least water it. That's a good tip for you guys to have in general, is that these are still live greens. So while we're making a wreath with them, the best tip that I can give you to keep these alive would be to mist them daily. So if you mist them, it will give the water to the holly and to the fir, which are the ones that need it the most, and keep it alive a little bit longer for you guys. All right, so now that we've broken down our greens, are we almost there, ladies? Okay. As far as our princess pine, whenever you guys get here, now if you have like this long doodad like me, I hope you don't, but if I gave that to you, I'm sorry. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use him in multiples. So I just chopped my guy in half, and then I want to use him. I can use him twice. So I'm just gonna pull back some of the needles and chop him again, so I can kind of use him twice. And then I'm gonna just shear off anything that I can use, anything usable, because I like princess pine, sticky and a nuisance, but I love her. She's worth the hassle. And then once you get to your holly, if you have a piece that's already a single girl, use her. I like to break her down in berries. So I have this giant branch, if you will. Go ahead and just chop her where you can use her to make like singles. At least 3 will be good. If you have one where the berries are all concentrated in the center, but you have leaves on the opposite side, cut it right in the middle where the berries are. All right, and for those of you who are ready, we'll go ahead and start talking about some holly. So I have all my fun facts here. All right, so holly is not mistletoe, fun fact. A lot of people believe that they are the same, they are not. Like we talked about, they're prickly, so please be careful with them. And holly has these, what we call drupes on them. Fun fact, these are not berries, they're drupes. Now, what's the difference between a drupe and a berry? Great question. A berry is, wait, where did I put that? Well, I know what a drupe is, so let's go over a drupe first. So a drupe is like a woody stone fruit, okay? And so it's hard. If you press it, it's very, very hard. Flowering plants that also have drupes consist of coffee, mangoes, and olives. So it's that really, really hard fruit. Okay, the major difference between a berry and a drupe is the thickness of the skin. So a drupe has a thickness of the skin about 2 millimeters, whereas a berry is very, very thin. So when you press the berry, it can come out. If you press this, you're gonna have to really push really hard in order to get this to break. Now, holly is really cool because only 29 insects can eat holly leaves because of the prickliness and it's non-digestible. It's also known as bad luck to cut down a holly bush because back then it warded away evil. And that's because they were really long living in the winter seasons. So they thought that they would ward away any evil because it didn't die. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Argentinian or South America, but holly is also used for making yerba mate. It's like a different traditional caffeinated alternative. Instead of coffee, they would drink yerba mate. All right, so I think we're all about settled now. I'm looking up. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our bundles, okay? So we need to make about 12 bundles at least. If you have more, make more. If you have less, make them really nice, okay? Or ask the girls for a little extra. Okay, so right here is silver. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick a nice little bundle. So I'm gonna do some silver, I'll do some cedar. I have a little bit of incense. Maybe I'll put like a little pine in there. And then this will be bundle 1. If I want, I could even add a berry in there. And see how aesthetic it looks right now? So that's kind of what we want to make. We want to make aesthetic little bunches. So you can use whatever you have. It doesn't have to be the same as mine. You don't have to mix it. You could use the same, but make sure that you're portioning so that we'll have enough greens to make 12 bundles. They don't have to be really big or really small. They just have to look nice. It has to be aesthetic. Now, once you make your bundle, you'll go ahead and you'll take one of your wires and you'll just kind of push in the center like that to make like a V, okay? And then I just kind of put my wire around the bottom, kind of push in my greens, and then I just kind of wrap. Just wrap your wire. And then I've got one little bundle. Now make sure that you're wrapping your wire tall enough so that way your bundles don't come free, okay? Wrap it as tight as you possibly can, and then you've got your one little bundle. And now we'll make 12 of these. But like I said, you can use whatever greens that you want. You could use 2 of the firs. You could use a mix of the fir and cedar. Whatever makes your heart happy, whatever you think looks aesthetic. And now if you have like a long piece of cedar like I do too, remember, you can always cross section it and have 2 pieces instead. You want them to look full enough, so definitely use whatever you can to make them look full. Think about each piece is going to be its own little wreath. And then what I like to do is if I have a lot of base at the bottom, I'll just go ahead and chop it even. So if I have like a lot sticking out, I'll go ahead and just cut off any extra that I have, just to make it a little bit more concise. And then I'll just keep producing my bundles.
Deanna, remind us again how many bundles we're creating?
We need to make about 12 bundles.
Okay, about 12 bundles. I'd say 8 to 12.
Yeah, about 8 to 12.
With the amount that you all have, yeah. As long as, you know, you kind of use your bundles as a guide and kind of read to be sure that it will cover everything. So maybe you have 6 bundles, maybe you have 8, maybe you have 9. It just depends on how big your bundles are.
Right. If you're making your bundles a little bit bigger than mine are quite small, right? So if you're making your bundles bigger than mine, then you're gonna have less, right? So it doesn't really matter how many bundles you have per se. I say 12, so that way you don't make them any smaller than that. But if you're making your bundles larger, don't fret. It'll still be beautiful.
Please feel free to raise your hand if you need any assistance, if you have any questions.
Just a quick note as well, that if anybody has dogs at home that like to eat their greenery, these berries are not exactly dog friendly. So if you guys have dogs, if your dogs are gonna be eating these, they could be toxic to dogs. So if you do not want your berries, let us know. We can switch it out for more pine cones. Otherwise, just wanted to make a quick note about that. You need what? The other one I have. Yeah, let me turn it around. Sarah, do we have any more fur? Particularly silver fur? Could you get me some? Bring you some.
What kind of pine cones are the ones that look like cones?
So
They are all solid until
Yeah.
the squirrels, till they open up and then the squirrels get at them and they look like corn cobs.
yeah, are you talking like these kinds or are you talking about these ones?
They're a little bit, they're about this big, Longmore hates them. But when they open in the seeds, so the seeds are available,
Uh-huh.
the squirrels eat all the seeds, and when they're done, they just throw the cob on the ground.
Oh, I don't know. Is that a specific Florida thing?
I have no idea, it was in my backyard when I moved in.
Oh, not a clue. I mean, all pine cones are the same, so they're all females. So, yeah, all pine cones are females, so just in case
Well,
we
you
didn't
even
know.
got the extra on that.
Yeah, fun fact, all pine cones are females. The male version, stays on the tree, so you don't actually ever see it. So all pine cones are females. They're all coniferous, so it's probably just a different version, probably a different, depending on the tree, whatever it is, it's probably the pine cone version of that tree.
It looks just like the pine ones in my front yard, but they make that kind of cone.
This kind, yeah. Yeah, it's probably just the special species of your tree. They have a just interesting little.
Did she
pine
go
cone.
somewhere? with my stuff?
Yeah.
The car is running right now in the parking lot.
Oh, quick announcement, everyone. I've got a running car in the parking lot. It looks like a silver Jeep with a license plate 357 AIE. It looks like there's an apple on that. If anybody has that car, your car is currently running. Somebody has to go catch it, okay? Hopefully you can run faster.
It's part of the service we provide here in the garden.
Yeah, she said just part of the service that she's providing here at the Garden Club. You're welcome. How are we doing? Are we getting there, ladies? Great. All right, I'm about 8 bundles in myself.
We are still working on our bundle doctor.
Perfect. And while we're working, fun fact about princess pines. So, like I said, I love these girls, but they're sticky. So that's why I use my gloves, because the other day I had black fingers. It gets stuck to literally everything and they're really hard to get off. So make sure that when you are done, that you use hot, warm soap to help kind of ease that sappiness. But it's really funny because princess pines are actually illegal to harvest in some states. It takes a long time for the plant to produce a spore-filled cone, the club cone that they have. This is their club cone, so it takes a really long time for them to produce this. And it's actually over-harvested just because it's used quite often. So in some states, they've actually made it illegal to harvest it. Hoping to keep the population up, I'm guessing.
Ladies, I don't know if you have been through this, but a nice tip with creating the bundles is to kind of start to put them around your roof, kind of frame your roof, just so you know how much you need.
That's a good tip, Yazzie.
So if you have your bundles ready, or as you're making your bundles, kind of start to put them on top of your wreath, right? As a guide, so you know how much we need, how many bundles we're doing, where we're going to attach them.
So I'll do a visual of that in a second, yes.
You're going to start to attach our greenery, so you know where everything's going. It's our little mock-up, right?
All right, ladies, so if you can see what Yasmin's talking about is she's saying that we need, if you like, make it a little bit easier to grab your wreath, and while you're still working on your bundles, you can start kind of putting it around so that way you can see kind of where or how much more you need or your spacing. Just kind of start putting it around. Now look, I have a lot because I like to do a crisscross method. So like I should have more than enough. I've made enough bundles, but I'm going to continue making bundles because like I said, I have a crisscross method. But my crisscross method is to start one here and then I put one out, one in, one out, one in. And I kind of just start visualizing. Now you can use the cedar or the fir, the silver fir forwards or backwards. It's really up to you. If you want yours to be greener rather than silver, use the front. If you want it to be more silver than green, use the back. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Please demonstrate the motion that you're showing us and kind of where you're placing.
Oh, sorry, I went a little fast.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one I place kind of just straight on. The second one I place on the outside, kind of making like a 45-degree angle towards the outside.
So another way to kind of demonstrate that too.
There? Okay. So straight, then 45-degree angle one way, then another 45-degree angle inside. Outside, inside.
Now, that's just one way to design it, ladies. Another way that it could be designed is kind of designing our wreath clockwise, right? So if we're looking at our wreath, we start to add each of our bundles.
So like this. So you're gonna go bam.
That's how I like to design, to kind of follow a flow. It's a little bit easier. So think about a clock.
And then note that you don't have that many berries, right? So you want to place your berries in a nice position so that way you have a little bit of berries everywhere. So spread out your berries, just be aware of where your berries are. So that's what Yazzie is talking about, just kind of going around in a nice clockwise circle, which probably would be best because these greens are kind of feathery. And then just create whatever else you need. If you have extra greens, you can use them. If you have too many greens, don't worry. We'll use them for the next class. Oh, good question. So I use the curve to my advantage. So it should kind of sit kind of like sitting in a dish, right? So the curve should be on the ground and you should be putting things into a dish. So concave up. So feel the curve. The part that is raised should be up. Right here it's raised. And this part, the two in the center, should be on the bottom. Right? It shouldn't be all the other way around. The two in the center should be touching your table. Don't throw your stuff, but two in the table should be touching your center.
Another way to explain. I had a question, so I'm just going to explain it really quickly. The wreath, the flat side is gonna go down on the table. The rounded part. Right, you see how it's rounded? This is going to be facing up. Right, yeah, rounded part facing up, right, Deanna? Rounded part up.
No, rounded part. So if you touch your wreath, you'll feel on the one side that you've got the two in the center, that those should be coming a little bit more out than the other top two.
That is how it is. I think you can do it either way.
Right? So, I mean, you can do it either way. I just like to do it with this way, so that way it kind of gives you, provides a little bit more stability. So the top two, the center
My braid's
two,
different. So my braid puts it flat, right? And then the rounded part.
goes
It
around.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That's a different thing.
It doesn't matter. So whichever way works best for you, I like to do it that way, so that way my greenery getting pushed up. If you want your greenery to fold down, you do it so the way the dome is up. If you want your greenery to get pushed out, you do it so that way it looks a little bit more flat to you. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is how I designed my wreath with it being up. It also makes it flat to your wall. So the greenery is coming out. As you can see, my greenery is pushed out, which is what I like. But if you like it the way Yasmin, her greenery falls back a little bit more. So it really just depends on what you want to do, but you can use it either way. There's no right or wrong way, just difference of, yeah. And that's the thing that's beautiful about flowers and floristry, is like there literally is no right or wrong way to do anything. You can experiment and you can do it however you want. All right, are we all past the bundle stage? Okay. All right, so if you are past the bundle stage, then you can get started putting your bundles onto the wreath. I'll show the first person, I'll show you guys how to do that, and then we'll get back to it again, just so that way we're not holding up anybody. So I always attach the first one. It's so different having this. Sorry guys, I keep showing you and I'm like, wait, you guys can see. Okay, so I always attach the first one kind of down straight on, as if it's gonna be right in line with my hooks. And then I take my wire and I bend it in half. And I kind of use it as a pin. So I just kind of bend my wire in half, I pin it within, and then you can see if you turn it around, that it's within the 1 and 2. And then I just kind of hold it and I just kind of tie it, twisting it. Oh, not my glove. This part I need gloves. So I just twist it real tight onto that. Now, if you have extra, you can always just bend it right back in to try to secure it even more. You're just trying to get it securely on there. So using that wire to kind of twist it, you can use the wire to go back around and just kind of secure it on there. Just make sure that you're not leaving any bits out that will poke you or somebody else. And then just secure it. So I had enough to go back around to the top and then twist it again. And then I have extra bits here. It's hard to see because everything's green, but then I just kind of fold it down. Now I can move it because he's secure on my guy, right? But he's not going anywhere. So that's kind of how I start that. And then for my next one, I'll just kind of do the same. Now you want to try to cover as much space as possible. So if you're using Yazi's method, then you can just kind of push right on directly on and just kind of go around clockwise in a straight pattern, which probably would be the best for these wreaths because they're quite small. If you want to use my pattern, then your center hole is probably going to be filled. So it really depends on what you want your wreath to look like. If you want it to look more circular, use the straight pattern. If you want it to look a little bit more free-formed, you can use the cata-cornered kind of pattern. So it really depends on what you want your wreath to look like. I use a cata-cornered pattern, so I think I'm going to go with Yaz's straight pattern just because it looks kind of cute. Now, you just also have to be aware that if you're using that straight pattern, that you have to cover the sides, right? Because if you're using the straight pattern, you're not covering the sides as much as you would if you were using my cata-cornered pattern. So make sure that while you're going, try to lay out your stuff so that way you make sure that all of your wire is hidden, right? We need to hide our mechanics. They can't know what we've done, right? This is a magic trick. Yeah, we'll put bows, exactly. We can hide it, right? So we can hide it with bows, we can hide it with our pine cones, but the idea, you're like, yep, that's me. But the idea is to hide our mechanics, right? This floristry is magical. We don't want anyone to know how we did this. We don't want them to know that there's a wire there. It just birthed itself naturally out of a tree. And then if you want to start fixing the stuff onto your wreath, and then if you have extra and you still want to make some more to fill in those holes, do it. But start fixing it onto the wreath so that way we can start taking shape and form and seeing what we've got. And I'm very like hard-handed. So I make sure that everything I use is secure because I pick things up and I don't give it a second thought. And if I don't secure it well, everything of mine will go flying. So if you're like me, make sure that you secure very well. So this is what mine's starting to look like. I'm using Yazi's straight on method, her clockwise method, instead of doing the zigzags. I did the zigzags for the one that is passed around for our previous example, the one that is Crystal's holding or somebody's holding back there. But this one I wanted to do the straight on method just because I wanted to have a more of a circle in the center, open circle in the center. So this is what it should start looking like if you're using that pattern. If you're using the zigzag pattern, you'll probably have a lot more covered here and a lot more covered over there. So it really just depends on what you want it to look like. But we're just going to continue. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, so whatever you want yours to look like, it's fine. But we just want to make sure that we're covering any holes as best as possible. Oh, I missed a berry bundle. And then remember while you're placing it on the wreath, remember your berries, right? If you want all of your berries to be together, put them together. If you want them to be separate, put them separate. But just know the placement of your berries because it's going to be hard to change it after the fact. I like, if I'm using 3 berries, which I generally use, I like to make sure that it's kind of like in a triangle pattern so that I have separate spacing. So I put one at the top, one on the side on the right, one on the side at the left. So that way it kind of is nice to look at. Yeah, like a nice triangle pattern. In floristry, generally triangles are good shape, 3s, rule of odds are good shapes. So whenever you're doing something, try to think about it in that. So as I'm placing, I just wanted to let you guys know, I've made mine a little bit long because I originally thought I was gonna do the catacornered. But as I'm placing and I decided to go on straight, if I do straight for this, I have a lot of empty space here and on this side. So what I'm doing instead is I'm kind of like opening him up and then shoving him. So that way he can be like hiding a little bit more. If that makes sense. I don't want any open spaces. As much as I can get rid of, I'm gonna try. And then my trick is I like to push down on my greenery as I'm twirling the ribbon to give it a little bit more secure. So as I'm putting the ribbon or the wire onto my greenery and kind of twisting, I push the greenery into the wire base, and then I twirl at the same time. It makes it very secure. Remember to push down any of your extra wires so that way you don't have anything prickling back at you if you touch it. Now, this is a simple way to make a wreath. You could also make a wreath on anything else. There are some people who make a wreath in Oasis. So if you guys are used to that floral foam, there is Oasis wreaths that you could use, and it will help, especially if you want to use fresh cut flowers, keep them alive a little bit longer. You could also use sphagnum moss. There is moss wreaths. That's really great, especially if you want to do something that lasts a little bit longer as well. The moss helps hold in the moisture. It's really good, but it is a little bit more difficult to work with, as you have to like place it in there and make sure that it stays. I find that the wire wreaths are probably the easiest to work with. It's just a lot of mechanics, but definitely if you want a longer lifespan, choose one of the other options, whether it be the Oasis wreath or the sphagnum moss. And the moss is really cool because I think it just smells wonderful, and it definitely helps the life. And we were going to use moss, but then I decided this would be so cool instead not to use any moss for the backing. It just gets everywhere. It's a little bit messy. But a fun fact about moss is that they used to be used back in the old days to fill pillowcases. Now, if you have like a lot of extra wire, you don't want to twist it or push it down, you can always cut it off. Once we're getting closer to the end of placing our wreaths together, it can get a little tricky, so we'll go over how to kind of fill in that space. Are we all more or less towards the end of our wreath? Okay. Okay. And remember, if you do want to add a bow, there are bows in the back. Feel free to go grab one. Miss Sarah's over there waving her hands in the beautiful black dress. She's our beautiful redhead. You just go over to her and she'll get you some ribbon. I don't know why I sung that sing-songy, but it felt right. If you want to keep it natural and you don't want to use the ribbon, you don't have to. But if you want to take some ribbon home later, that's cool too. All right, is anyone close to the end? Do you guys need me to show you how to finish her off? Or do I wait a little bit longer? Little longer? Little longer. About halfway, okay. All right, well then as you guys are still working, I will just hang out with you. All right, as you guys are working, I'm gonna actually come down and take a look and see if you guys, see what you guys have been up to. Yeah. I'm coming. And then if you guys know how to make a bow, go for it. If you want to see me and how I make a bow, I'll show you guys right at the end. Yes. We need some more greens over here. Okay. Yeah, we got a whole lot of stuff. Let me go grab these up. Very good. Ladies, these are looking so wonderful. We need some more greens too. We're gonna set some over here. Let me go grab my branch scissors. Put that in there. I'm gonna get my branch scissors. Oh, perfect. Wow. See the lady over there? Okay. You're welcome. I was like, I just want to make sure it was two ladies. Wire, I have it by me. I'm hiding it. Does anybody else need anything while we're walking around? Wire? Okay, now normally we cut the wire in half. So you cut her in half, you'll have 60 strips. Is that enough? Okay, there you go.
Just to be safe.
But cut her in half so that way you can use her twice. Sorry. All right, can I see your ears? And that's a personal question. I'm starting to. They're looking beautiful. All right, there's a lot of wire there for you.
Y'all are well great. This back here, you have a big design. They're all really good.
Yes. You ladies are doing wonderful. I love how they're turning out. They're looking beautiful. I see we have a couple of people ready to start finishing. Yes, yes. We'll go over the pine cones, flow, and the finish. This is one. You shouldn't need wire for the pine cones. I wire mine in, but you shouldn't need them. They should just stick right in, like yours is sticking right in. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, if you guys are at the point where for finishing, I'll go over that. It looks like we got a lot of people finishing up now. That is no fur. Yes, everybody's looking quite amazing. Love it. Love it. You're ready. I'm proud. She's already got bows on it over here. She's an advanced worker. Yeah, let's have some. Sarah, do you have some scissors for ribbon? Looking wonderful, looking wonderful. No, it's working. So we're both going on the sweet and dinner. I was this guy down. Yeah, you would take your space. If you want, you can actually fill in. So there's like no right or wrong way to do it. Fine, right? So just fill it in the space if you want. Otherwise, it's good. Yeah, he's good. He's doing wonderful. Beautiful. Look at you guys. Advanced. Oh, okay. So let me go back on stage and I'll show you guys how to finish pine cones and the bow. All right. For bows and pine cones, it really depends on how you want to make it. If you have scissors, well, let's finish first and then we'll go over the bows. Okay, so if you're at this point here, or even if you're not at this point, this is how you're gonna finish your wreath, okay? So I have just one little space left now in my wreath, and I have two beautiful little bundles. So the first bundle that I'm gonna put is I'm gonna put them just right on top. And now it's gonna be a little bit difficult to see and feel because it should be so close together that there should be no spacing. But if you have spacing, then use it. So then you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna put your bundle right on top. You're gonna do the same thing in secure. And it's gonna be hard to work with because there's gonna be literally no room to see if you have a dense kind of bushel like I do. And then so I just kind of secure from the back again, pushing in really hard, secure them, secure, secure, and then I just do the same exact thing. Now, the reason why it's difficult is not just because there's no difference. It's hard to kind of see, and you want to make sure that you're closing any space as best as possible, but you just kind of shoot him right into the holes. So now that I have my last guy on and I'm securing him, yeah, just shoot him right in the hole. So you see I still have that open space. I still have that open space. So now I'm just gonna take my guy and I'm gonna put him right in that open space here. Now there's not much to work with or hold on to, so I'm just gonna attach him where I can. So now if I hold him up, you don't see the space, but he's not secure, right? So I still have to go in and I have to find him and I have to go underneath and I have to secure him to whatever I can. Now these wires, while they're thin, are still quite hardy. So you can just poke right through and make sure that you get to the other side. So even if you can't see the wires underneath, that's okay. Just poke right through so that way you can secure. So that's what I'm gonna do. I can't see. If you see, I can't see at all. So I'm just gonna poke my guy right through. I'm gonna hold him up. And then wherever he lands, it looks like he landed on the biggest outer sides. If I don't want to do that, I can re-poke, or I can just go ahead and let him lay wherever he wants to lay. And then don't be afraid to flip your wreath over. It's greenery, it's pretty hardy. Thank you. Can you move my mirror so they can see me?
Can y'all see it? Can y'all see your hands? Am I going the right way? Can you see your hands now? Yes.
Okay.
Now? No? Do I need to go up or down? Okay, yeah? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is how my wreath looks with just my greenery now. Okay, so my wreath is done. I've put him into every little hole. I made sure that he was nice and secure. And now you're just gonna add in your pine cones. Now there's two ways to add a pine cone. Now our pine cones are already picked, so they're super easy. You can literally just put them wherever you'd like, and then you kind of just shove them in and cut off any excess using the wires behind to kind of keep them in place. So like I said, I do berries in threes, like a triangle. So I'm gonna do my pine cones in the other shape of a triangle. So yes. Sorry, yes. Okay. So my wreath is now finished, right? So my pine cones, I'm just gonna stick here. Is this what you're asking me, Sarah? Okay. So I'm just gonna stick in. So my triangle for my berries is up, down, and right. So now I'm gonna go down, left, right for my pine cones. So that way it should kind of spread out. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick my pine cone into where I like it, and then I'll turn them over. And if you can see, I kind of like to weave as best as I can and just kind of stick them in. So he's a big wooden stick. So wherever you stick him, he'll stay, but you just gotta stick him somewhere stable.
And it's definitely easier to kind of go in at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be easier to wire it on there. She's kind of guiding you on where to put them, but feel free to put your pine cones and berries wherever you think will be most beautiful to your eye.
Mm-hmm.
It's your design, so you want to be happy with it.
Yes. Now that I have my pine cone kind of stuck in, as you can see, he's stuck in, he's stable, but I still have the back of my pine cone wood stick sticking out. I'll just go ahead and chop him off. If I want to bring him in even further, I'll just chop him off where he is. Now, the other way to do this, now he's quite stable, right? I got him in at an angle. I got him wedged in between my greenery. I got him wedged in between my wire. He's not going to go anywhere. The other way to do this is if you have any extra wires or if you prefer doing this. This is the way that I prefer. Like I said, I'm very heavy-handed. If I knock this on something, he probably would come off. I mean, but he's secure, but I'm heavy-handed. So the other way to secure a pine cone is to take a piece of wire. You're gonna wrap the wire around the bottom of the pine cone, and then you'll just twist them on securely. Okay, so this is the second way that you can do this. You'll twist them on securely. And then what I do is I don't need the stick too much, so I just kind of pop off most of it. So that way I have only like a little nudge. Now that nudge just provides stability. The wire is what I'm actually securing. So this is the second way. So now I want to put my second pine cone probably about here-ish. So what I'll do is I'll take my wire and I'll push it down towards the ground. And just like I stuck in my wooden pick before, I'm going to stick it right in the center, wherever I want him there. And using that wooden pick to kind of secure him in spot, wherever I want him. And then using the wire that I have on the back here to just wrap him and keep him in place so he doesn't move whatsoever, even if I knock him on something because I'm hard-handed. So this is a second option. It really depends on like what you prefer. Now I've got 2 of my 3 pine cones. And then for my third one, I'm just gonna go ahead and do the stick method again. So I'm just gonna find a nice spot for him. I wanna do him here. Just like I said, I like to do mine in triangles, but whatever works best for you, whatever you find most beautiful, do. But I'm just gonna do mine in the triangle pattern so it just looks a little bit more balanced, which is what I like it to look like. And I'm just gonna stick them in nice and straight. Now I went in at such an angle that I didn't have much of my green sticking out because I went into the greenery. So he's kind of a little bit more hidden, but I kind of like that. So I'm gonna leave him big, but he's nice and secure. He's not gonna pop off. All right, so this is what it should look like towards your end. You should have a nice full wreath all the way around. If you do have some holes, don't fret. We can always cover them with more pine cones, with bows, with other greenery. All right, so don't fret. But you should have a green wreath all the way around, at least 3 berries and at least 3 pine cones. If you didn't want to use the berries or the pine cones, you could have switched those out to whatever you wanted. But this is our traditional kind of Advent wreath type. And now we're going to make a bow. So if you have your ribbon, grab your ribbon. Clean off our space a little bit, especially with the sap. Whenever you're doing something after you make your wreath or any floral arrangement, and then you're starting to use like cloth or any kind of like ribbon, you want to clean off your space because you don't want your ribbon to get dirty, right? That's your final part. So you really want it to be beautiful and clean. So then you'll take your ribbon. Now, I don't know how much Sarah's cut you off. Sarah, how much did you cut for them? A yard. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to eyeball about a yard. All right, so there's a bunch of ways that you could make your ribbon. Most of the ribbon that you have is pretty hardy and thick, right? Some of them even have wire, or some of them, once you move them, they'll stay in place. So whichever way you want to do is best. The way that I like to do my ribbons is I like them to be big and full, okay? So what I'll do is I'll take one of my tails and I'll just kind of hold my tail with a lot of extra on the bottom, okay? Then I'll wrap the tail around my finger, my thumb, creating kind of like a loop. Beautiful. And then I'll go ahead and I'll twist. So keep in mind, this tail is going to be the one that kind of goes down. This is going to be our bow. So if I want my bow to be with the back, it depends if you have double facing or forward facing. If I want it to be with the back, then I'll leave it. If I don't, then I'll just hold, pinch it, and twist. So now I have forward facing again. If you don't have forward facing, you have both on each side. You don't have to do that. You can just hold it and leave it alone. Either way, so you could leave it like this if you don't have forward facing, and you could just start creating your loops. If you do have forward facing, again, you just pinch, twist it, and now you have the forward facing again. It's just about visuals. You just want to make sure it looks good. And then I'll make my loop. So I make my loop like this, just loop her around, and then I'll just hold again, and I'll do the same thing. Because I want mine forward facing, I'll make another loop. I make about, depends on the ribbon that I have. If you only have a yard, I'll probably make about 3 to 4 loops. And they don't have to be the same exact size. They can be different sizes. I prefer when they're different sizes, just because I think it gives it a little bit more dimension and depth when you're looking at it. And now that you have got about 4 loops, right? Then you can go ahead and you can pinch and turn it, go back to the bottom. All right, so that's like a cute little bow. Now I have a lot of extra on one side and not a lot of extra on the other side, which is great because I'm going to use that to secure my bow together. Now you can use wire or you can use another part of the ribbon. It really depends on you. Some people like to use the ribbon as extra to secure it. Some people prefer wire because it's just easier. So if you have extra wire, if you want extra wire, use the wire. Same technique, just put it in the center, pull it down and secure it by twisting it, okay? If you want to use an extra piece of ribbon just to keep it all succinct, then you just fold your ribbon in half, put it in, and tie it hard all the way around and just tie it nice and tight. If you have a hot glue gun, which I know we don't today, you could also secure it like that. So that's my ribbon. And now because most of our ribbon is already stiff, you can adjust where you need to make it just look a little bit better. Ribbon is so complicated because literally you can't mess it up. You just loop it up, fluff it up, do whatever you want to make it a little bit more beautiful. Now for me, I like a lot of loops. I like my bow to be like bam, but this one's kind of just cute and simple. So this is just an easy, simple way to make a bow. If you want to make an easier bow, all you have to do is just make 2 loops. You don't have to make more than 2. And then you can just secure it onto your wreath wherever you visually like it. So I think mine, I like kind of towards the side. I want it to be towards the side. So I'm going to secure there. And again, you could use wire to secure right onto the center. If you have any questions, raise your hand. One of the ladies will be around to help you. Once I secure my bow, I will also be coming down to help. All right, ladies, so this is my finished wreath. Thank you. Sure, I will definitely show you how to make a bow again. I love making bows. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, so Miss Sarah's asked me to repeat this. So we were gonna go again and repeat. So I got about a yard. So I do about my own width. I'm gonna cut them. I like to cut my bows on a slant. Some people prefer like the diagonal instead of the diagonal. They prefer if you fold it in half and then cut from the edge, not from the center. You fold it in half and cut from the center, from the edge. Whoa, what am I talking about? Fold it, cut from the center, not from the edge. So if you do it wrong, that's what it's gonna look like. Okay? I did it wrong. So if you do it right, that's what it's gonna look like. So it just depends on which tail you want it to be, fishtail or slanted. It doesn't really matter. It's all about visuals. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a tail. You need a nice size tail, okay? You're gonna wrap it around your thumb to make a nice little bow, nice little loop, nice little wrap, okay? And then what I do is I just throw that tail over because I want this to be my front because this is prettier. and then I'll just kind of fix them, so that way I have a nice little loop. And then I kind of hold, and if you have to twist, you can twist. If you don't have to twist, right? If your material looks just as nice as on one side as it does on the other, you do not have to twist. It makes it harder, okay? So if your material looks just as nice, you can just go ahead and fold it, loop it. And you can do it, fold it, loop it. And then you can go up and do it again, fold it and loop it. And one more time, fold it and loop it, okay? Making sure that you have enough for another tail, or you just cut this one even, whatever you'd like to do. So if you have a nice double-sided bow, you do not have to twist. The twist makes it a little bit more complicated, okay? If you don't have a nice sided bow, like me, then I'm twisting. So what I'm doing is I got my loop, I'm gonna hold with my thumb here, I'm gonna hold with my thumb, and then I'm gonna twist. And then I re-hold with my thumb, and then I loop it. And then I do the same thing, I hold and twist. And then I loop it, and then I do the same thing, I hold and twist. It's basically just making loops back and forth, back and forth. And I like to make different size loops just because I think it gives it more dimension. And then now I'm here, this is my back. It's just completely flat, right? But now my front looks really nice. If I don't like the way that this tail looks, I can always turn them, okay? So it's very moldable, right? A bow is very moldable. You're gonna have to shush them up at the end anyway to make them look nice. But now my tails kind of don't match and I still have to secure him. So like I said, you can use a wire to secure, but if you use a wire to secure, you really need to make sure that you're going in through that loop, the first loop that you made, and going all the way around, making sure all of your bows and loops are kind of secure. If you don't secure it, you might have a loop falling out and then your bow is not going to be complete. So you really want to make sure that you secure well. All right, so you always go in through that initial loop that you made, you go in that way, okay? You go right in there, and then you're going to go up and around, making sure that you get every single piece. So that way when it lays around, it's going to lay nice and flat. Now, the way I like to secure with wire is I kind of hold this guy out, and I just keep pushing until I gather all the fabric, pushing the wire on kind of onto itself. And then I just kind of hold and push down, and I twist tight right onto it. I want it to be tight. So that's how I do it with a wire. And then I leave the wire ends kind of there so I can use it to secure onto something. And then I zhuzh up my bow however I want it on the ends. I fix them up. I make the tails even if I want them even. Sometimes I don't like them even. And then I'll cut them the same way so they at least look the same. And then you can always zhuzh up your bow again.
Can I see that?
Yeah.
I was way in the back, so it's really,
It's hard to see in the back.
so you just come across do the original long one.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'll show one more time. I'll show one more time, ladies. All right, so we got our original tail. Okay, tail here. I'm gonna go around my thumb, creating that loop. Once I have that loop, I just kind of adjust my hands so that way I can start making my bow, okay? So I've got this loop, and now I've got this bow here. I've got this whole tail here, and I've just got a random loop there. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna readjust my hands holding that, so that way I've got my loop here, okay? And then if you don't have a single facing side, you can just start your loop like this. One, and you hold it again. One, you hold it again. Again. And try to make them different sizes if you want them different sizes. If you want them the same size, make them the same size. And you just hold again until you get where you're at.
Yeah.
Right? And then I kind of just turn my guy down.
Okay. But
So that way
then twist it if it's got the two sides to it.
If you have two
Okay.
sides, or if it's one-sided only, then I twist it, but still doing the same action, so that way I get those loops.
Okay.
And then depending on whether you're using more ribbon or wire, it doesn't matter, you're still gonna always put it through that first initial loop. And then you wanna make sure that even if you twist your guy down, you don't secure him down, because otherwise he's gonna come out. You're gonna secure him while he's out here, and you can always twist that down later.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's do it together. That's okay. We'll use less tail. So then you're gonna go here, and just hold. Yep, and then you're gonna flip them around. Beautiful. Then you're gonna flip them around again. Okay. You got it. Right, now you're just gonna refold. So you're gonna get yourself in there and just refold it out. You're like this. So get in there, yeah. And then you're just gonna go. So what you wanna do is you wanna go out. And then refold. And then you're gonna go out. And then refold. Right? So now you've got two. So you got two. If you want to do smaller, so you can get a little bit more out of it, just let go of that. And then you're gonna do a little smaller one. And then hold. And another smaller one. And then hold. And then another little bigger one. And then hold. You can always use these to make a little tail at the end, but you want to use so that you hold them in there. And then you're going to secure some wire right in the center. So you're going to put it right into the big hole that we made, that loop. And then you're going to just kind of, what I do is I kind of hold the center fabric, get your thumbs in, and then grab from the top and the bottom, push them together. Yep, push the fabric together. There you go. Yep. No, push the fabric together. Yep. And then as you push the fabric together, you push the wires together too. And then you'll start turning and spinning it. You're welcome. And then remember, bows are all about zhuzhing them up at the end. They're not always going to look nice as we're making them, so just make them look nice afterwards. Let me grab some wire, got my bow. And for those of you who are leaving already, thank you for joining us so much. Come to the Jacksonville Flower Market to come hang out with us. Otherwise, I'll be walking around helping whoever else needs help. How's it going here? I like it. Yeah. I like how you put all the books in one spot, or all the berries in one spot, all the droops in one spot. Yeah.